The wind howled across the barren landscape, sending waves of dust and sand swirling through the air. The ground was cracked and parched, with no signs of life except for the occasional shadow cast by the distant, hostile creatures lurking in the wasteland. This planet, once teeming with life, now lay in ruin, abandoned by its alien inhabitants. But something stirred within the desolation. A lone creature, barely holding on to life, staggered through the unforgiving terrain. Its body was torn and bloodied from the harsh conditions, but it had no choice. Survival was the only instinct it knew. The creature's movements were slow, each step more painful than the last. Its limbs trembled from exhaustion, and its breath came in shallow gasps as it stumbled across jagged rocks, trying to find shelter from the planet's blistering winds. This alien, an outcast of its kind, had been left to die on this hostile world, forgotten by the very race it once called home. Its species was advanced, capable of incredible feats of technology and power, but this creature, an individual, was seen as weak, unable to keep up with the demands of its own people. So it had been abandoned, cast aside to perish alone. Yet survival instinct had driven it forward, through pain, through desperation, seeking anything that could offer a glimmer of hope. But there was no help. No one would save it, not from the deadly predators that stalked the land, nor from the harsh conditions that would destroy even the strongest of beings. Or so it seemed. The creature's steps faltered as the distant sound of approaching footsteps caught its attention. It froze, its senses heightened. Who could it be? There was no one out here, no one but the creatures of the planet. It turned, trying to locate the source of the sound, but the winds picked up again, drowning out everything. The steps were faint, but they were there, definitely there. The creature's heart raced, and it instinctively crouched low, preparing to defend itself. Yet no attack came. Instead, a strange presence filled the air, almost as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The creature's senses flared with confusion. Was it an alien predator, or something more dangerous? From the shadows of a nearby rocky outcrop, a cloaked figure appeared. The figure was tall, nearly a silhouette against the harsh sunlight, its features obscured by a hooded cloak. The creature's instincts screamed for it to flee, but its body was too weak to move. It had no choice but to watch as the figure slowly approached. As the human figure came closer, the creature's eyes widened. It could sense the difference. The technology, the power. This wasn't an ordinary being. The human, shrouded in the advanced cloak that bent light around it, blended into the background, almost invisible. The creature could hear the faint hum of technology, the whirring of machinery that seemed too advanced to belong to a mere traveler. The human paused for a moment, scanning the environment, then slowly kneeled. The creature's senses were on edge, but it was too weak to react. Its head drooped, the weight of the world too much to bear. Every breath felt like a struggle. The human took one step forward, and then another. The creature felt the ground beneath it tremble slightly, the heavy boots of the human soldier making contact with the dirt. Each step was deliberate, careful. The air was tense, and the winds howled even louder, as if nature itself was watching. But still, the creature could do nothing. It had no strength left to fight or flee. And then, in the blink of an eye, the human figure dropped its hood, revealing a face, strong, focused, and determined. His eyes locked with the creature's for a brief, intense moment. The creature's heart pounded in its chest, and it instinctively backed away, its legs shaking beneath it. But the human was not hostile. No, there was something else in his gaze, something unexpected. Compassion. Without a word, the human reached into his pouch and pulled out a sleek, silver device. The creature flinched at first, afraid of the unknown, but it couldn't move. The device glowed faintly with a soft blue light, and the human pressed it to the creature's side. The alien creature let out a low, painful groan as a strange warmth radiated from the device. Pain washed away, replaced with a soothing sensation. The creature's wounds began to heal before its very eyes, the deep gashes on its sides slowly closing, the bruises fading, and the exhaustion lifting. The human's voice broke the silence, though his words were alien to the creature. Yet the tone was gentle, almost comforting. The creature couldn't understand, but the warmth of the human's presence was undeniable. It could feel the energy coming from the device, a powerful healing tool that restored its strength bit by bit. The creature's eyes widened, its confusion growing. It wasn't supposed to survive this. This planet was supposed to be its grave. No one cared, no one would help. Yet here was a human, a creature from a species considered inferior by the rest of the galaxy, saving it. For the first time, the creature felt a strange, unexplainable feeling. Trust. It was fleeting, fragile, but it was there. As the human continued to administer the healing device, the creature's body began to stabilize. It slowly stood up, its legs still weak but far stronger than they had been moments before. It could feel its energy returning, the warmth from the device radiating through its body. And yet, it couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of disbelief. How had this human found it? Why had the human helped it? The creature had no answers. All it knew was that for the first time since it had been abandoned, it felt like it might survive. The human stepped back, watching the creature with a mix of curiosity and caution. The creature, now standing, slowly took a step forward, still wary but drawn to this strange, compassionate being before it. The human's weapon was visible now, but the creature felt no immediate threat. This was no attack. This was no fight. It was an encounter. The human didn't speak again. He simply watched as the creature adjusted to its newfound strength. The creature could feel the tension between them, the fragile bond that had been forged in this moment of crisis. The human wasn't like the others. He wasn't cruel. He didn't abandon it. In a world where abandonment had been its only reality, this human was an anomaly. But that bond was still fragile. The creature wasn't ready to trust fully. Not yet. After all, it had been abandoned by its own kind. Could it truly trust this human? Or was this just a momentary illusion? But as the creature took another step closer, the human extended his hand, not in a gesture of aggression, but one of understanding. The creature hesitated, the storm in its mind battling with the new sensation of hope that had taken root. Then, after a long pause, the creature did something it hadn't done in a long time. It stepped forward, cautiously, but with intent. And in that moment, it wasn't just surviving anymore. It was choosing something else, something different. The human smiled slightly, though it was barely visible behind his mask. But in that smile was a promise that this creature wouldn't be left to die alone. And thus began a new chapter of survival, not just for the creature, but for both the human and the alien. They were no longer enemies or strangers. They were allies in a harsh world, bound by a single, fragile moment of trust. The desolate landscape stretched endlessly before them, an inhospitable world of jagged rocks and barren plains. The harsh winds howled through the canyon-like ravines, carrying the stench of decay and dust. The sky above was a dull gray, with occasional flashes of distant lightning, illuminating the jagged mountains in the distance. The alien world, once vibrant with life, was now a cold, desolate wasteland. The human soldier, tall and imposing in his advanced armor, had crash-landed here after a disastrous mission. His ship, severely damaged by enemy fire, had plummeted from the sky, its wreckage scattered across the rocky expanse. He had no way of contacting his unit, no way of calling for help. The communication systems in his suit were damaged, and the AI drones he relied on for survival had been damaged in the crash. He was alone. At least, he had been. Now, the soldier was not alone. The creature, the alien he had saved, had followed him without question. It was as though some unspoken bond had formed between them, a bond rooted in shared survival and an unexpected moment of trust. The creature, still weak from its earlier wounds, moved with caution, its eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. The soldier had no idea what to make of it yet. It was an alien, a being from another world. But in the chaos of the crash, he hadn't been in a position to question anything. The soldier's focus remained on survival. His helmet's visor displayed a map of the terrain, highlighting potential threats and possible shelters. His AI assistant, a robotic drone that hovered nearby, provided real-time data, analyzing the environment for signs of danger. The soldier had no illusions about the planet's danger. The creatures on this world were aggressive, and the conditions were unforgiving. But he had survived before, and this planet would not be the end of him. For now, his only concern was finding shelter. The wind was picking up again, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. The creature seemed to sense the danger, its alien instincts kicking in. It followed the human, staying close but keeping a wary distance. It seemed to trust him, but only just. It was still an unknown variable in this strange new world. The soldier didn't have time for explanations. He needed to survive. But as they moved deeper into the ravine, something unexpected happened. The creature's gaze was drawn to his robotic assistant, the AI drone that hovered above them. It was small, sleek, and glowing with a soft blue light. It had been hovering silently, scanning the surroundings, when the creature suddenly reached out a trembling hand, its long fingers brushing the drone's metallic surface. The soldier stopped, watching with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The creature seemed fascinated by the drone, its eyes wide with a strange kind of wonder. The drone, responding to the creature's touch, emitted a series of soft beeps, and the creature let out a soft, almost inquisitive noise. It was unlike anything the soldier had ever seen. The creature had barely spoken since he saved it, and yet here it was, communicating in a way that was beyond just instinct. Without thinking, the soldier activated the drone's communication system, which displayed a series of symbols on his helmet's visor. The drone chirped again, its mechanical voice translating the simple message. "Does the creature understand?" The soldier murmured to himself, though the words were more rhetorical than anything. He didn't expect an answer. To his surprise, the creature didn't flinch. Instead, it seemed to study the symbols, its eyes narrowing as it focused on the flashing lights. Slowly, cautiously, it reached out again, this time pressing its hand against the drone's surface. The drone responded by displaying more symbols, and the creature followed along. It was as if it was learning, adapting to the technology in a way the soldier didn't expect. A spark of realization flashed through his mind. This creature, once thought to be a mere animal, was not as primitive as it seemed. There was intelligence here, intelligence far beyond what he had originally thought. It was adapting to his technology at an alarming rate. The soldier couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe this creature wasn't just a burden after all. Maybe it could help him survive. As they continued their journey, the soldier taught the creature what he could. He showed it how to use basic survival tools, how to harness the energy of the planet's scarce resources, how to navigate the treacherous terrain, and how to avoid the predators that stalked them from the shadows. The creature, once an outcast, now displayed incredible learning ability, picking up the soldier's teachings with remarkable speed. It wasn't just mimicking his actions, it was understanding. By the time they reached a sheltered cave in the mountains, the creature had become more than just an ally. It had become a partner. Together, they set up camp, the soldiers' cloaking technology masking their presence from any potential threats. The cave, a natural formation in the rock, provided some respite from the relentless storm outside. The soldier quickly set up his equipment, deploying energy shields and monitoring devices, while the creature watched, seemingly fascinated by everything the human did. But their moment of peace was short-lived. As night fell, the sounds of the wilderness grew louder, the low growls and roars of distant creatures echoing through the cave. The soldier's sensors detected movement outside, and he immediately raised his weapon, scanning the surroundings. The creature, instinctively, dropped into a crouch, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It was no longer the weak, abandoned being it had been. It was becoming a warrior in its own right. Suddenly, the shadows outside shifted, and a pack of ferocious alien beasts appeared on the horizon. Their glowing eyes gleamed in the darkness, their bodies massive and muscular, built for hunting. The soldier's heart raced. He had faced these creatures before, and he knew how deadly they could be. But now, he wasn't alone. The creature stepped forward, its posture shifting as it seemed to ready itself for the fight. The soldier's weapon hummed to life, a high-tech energy rifle that crackled with power. He glanced at the creature, who, surprisingly, wasn't afraid. It was determined. Without warning, the beasts lunged, their claws extended, their teeth bared. The soldier fired first, his shot striking the nearest creature and sending it reeling backward. But the pack was relentless. They charged, their roars deafening as they closed the distance. The soldier's energy shield activated just in time, the protective barrier deflecting the blows from the creatures. But the shield was weakening, and he knew it wouldn't hold for long. That's when the creature acted. With a sudden, fluid motion, the alien leaped into action, its claws slashing through the air as it tackled one of the beasts. The soldier watched in awe as the creature fought with an intensity and skill that he hadn't anticipated. It was using the survival instincts the soldier had taught it, but it was also improvising, adapting, and learning faster than he could keep up. Together, they fought back to back, their movements synchronized, as if they had been working together for years. The soldier's rifle fired in rapid succession, each shot taking down a beast, while the creature used its claws and agility to evade and strike with deadly precision. The fight was brutal and fast-paced, the air filled with the sounds of battle. The soldier's heart pounded in his chest as the creatures kept coming, but he no longer felt alone. The creature was by his side, and together, they were a force to be reckoned with. In the end, the beasts were defeated, their bodies littering the ground outside the cave. The soldier and the creature, both panting heavily from the exertion, stood victorious. It was a moment of triumph, but also of realization. They had formed something stronger than an alliance. They had formed a partnership. The soldier looked at the creature, a hint of respect in his eyes. This fragile bond, forged in the heat of battle, was stronger than anything he could have imagined. The creature had trusted him, and in return, he had taught it how to survive. But what came next was uncertain. This was only the beginning of their journey. The quiet of the cave was shattered by the low hum of the soldier's cloaking device. Outside, the wind howled, whipping the dust and debris of the barren planet through the air. Inside, the soldier sat, his helmet scanning the screens before him. The creature, now somewhat more relaxed in its temporary home, stood a few feet away, its eyes constantly flicking toward the entrance of the cave, as though sensing something was wrong. The soldier's hand hovered over the control panel of his suit, his eyes narrowed in concentration. He had known something was off when the skies above had darkened. His sensors, still operating at minimal capacity after the crash, had begun picking up strange readings. The low hum of the distant planet's atmosphere had shifted, replaced by a much more ominous sound. That's when it happened. His visor flickered, the warning lights flashing. A fleet of ships had just appeared, unbidden, on his radar. He squinted at the screen, his breath catching in his throat. These weren't ordinary ships. The sleek, dark hulls were lined with high-tech armor, and their movements were precise. Too precise for the usual space pirates he had encountered before. They were organized, methodical, and deadly. These were mercenaries, equipped with the best cloaking technology and advanced eye-controlled war machines. Worse still, they were not here by accident. The creature, sensing his sudden alarm, turned toward the soldier. It stood frozen, its eyes wide with something between confusion and fear. The soldier stood up quickly, his heart racing. He had no time to explain, no time for anything other than to act. He quickly patched into his helmet's communication system, broadcasting a signal to his AI drones. "Stay on alert," he muttered, voice low. "Something's coming." The creature, still watching him intently, seemed to understand. It had grown used to the soldier's behavior in such moments. The soldier had taught it to be alert, to respond to danger. But this was different. He could feel it in the air. The tension was rising, thick and palpable. As the ships entered the planet's atmosphere, the soldier activated his suit's cloaking device once again, but something was different this time. The normally smooth hum of the cloaking text seemed to struggle, a faint distortion in the air. The mercenaries' ships had sophisticated detection systems, and the soldier knew they would be looking for any trace of his presence. The creature looked to him, its eyes searching his face for answers. It had come to trust him, but now, with the threat of these mercenaries, that trust would be tested. The soldier knew he had to keep them both hidden, at least until he could figure out what the mercenaries wanted. The first ship dropped down from the sky, its massive hull gleaming under the dim light of the planet. It was followed by another, and then another, until a fleet of 5 alien ships had appeared in orbit. Their movements were swift and precise, and the soldier knew they were methodical. This wasn't just an attack. It was a calculated operation. Lyra confessed, her voice cold and emotionless. She had been sent by the AI Empire to sabotage the human mission from the inside. Her task had been simple: infiltrate the human ranks, gain their trust, and then relay all the information back to the Empire. She had been planting seeds of doubt, sowing discord among the soldiers, all the while gathering intelligence on the child's powers. "I never cared about your cause," Lyra said, her eyes hard as steel. "The moment I was assigned this mission, I knew exactly what I was doing. The child isn't a weapon you can control. It's just a tool, nothing more." Bonner's fists clenched in anger. He had trusted her, had fought alongside her, and now she had revealed herself to be nothing more than a traitor, a pawn in the hands of the very empire they were fighting against. But before Bonner could make his move, the sound of approaching ships filled the air. The AI Empire had already discovered their location, and the time for revenge against Lyra would have to wait. The humans had no choice but to face the full force of the AI's wrath. With the child's life hanging in the balance, they had no room for distractions. Bonner made the painful decision to restrain Lyra, knowing that there was no time for justice now. They had to escape, had to keep the child safe. Lyra, however, had made her choice, and there was no going back for her. The child had already proven its power, but now it was time for the humans to prove theirs. They had to fight, to protect the last hope of the galaxy, even if it meant sacrificing everything. As the human forces gathered for a final stand, the AI warships descended upon them. The sky darkened as their massive ships filled the air, their energy weapons glowing ominously. It was a battle they couldn't win, not without the child's power. The child, though still weak, had begun to show signs of strength. Its energy surged, brighter and more controlled than before. Bonner, standing at the front of the human line, looked down at the child. It was no longer just a helpless alien. It was their weapon, their hope. And for the first time, Bonner believed they had a chance. But then, the real shock came. As the AI ships closed in, the child's energy flared up, and Bonner saw something he couldn't explain: an image of an AI-controlled warship in the child's mind, its destruction in full view. The child wasn't just capable of controlling energy. It was tapping into something much darker, something far more powerful. The child had a connection to the very heart of the AI Empire. The realization hit Bonner like a freight train. The child wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to destroying the AI Empire itself. But in order to wield that power, they had to understand the child's true nature and unlock the full extent of its abilities. The suspense was unbearable. The child's energy crackled, growing stronger and more unpredictable with every passing second. Bonner had to act fast, before the AI Empire could destroy them all. As the battle reached its crescendo, the humans were left with one final question. Would the child's power be enough to save them, or would it destroy them all? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, and the next move would determine the fate of the galaxy. The battle was about to reach its climax, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown to the inevitable. The humans, having uncovered the full scope of their enemy's power, were preparing for the fight of their lives. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for the future of their galaxy. Every soldier, every strategy, every weapon they had in their arsenal would be pushed to its absolute limit. The AI Empire was relentless. Their warships hovered above the battlefield, casting dark shadows on the cracked and barren planet's surface. Every step the humans took was met with devastating fire from the AI's powerful fleets. But the humans weren't backing down. They had survived too much, fought too hard. And now, with the alien child at their side, they had one last chance to win. The air vibrated with the sounds of orbital bombardments, each explosion shaking the ground beneath their feet. The sky, once clear, was now filled with the heavy shadows of AI warships descending. The humans had no choice but to meet this final assault head-on. They had prepared for this moment, pulling out every piece of technology and strategy they could muster. Soldiers in powered exoskeletons moved with precision, their suits enhancing their strength and speed as they clashed with the robotic enforcers sent by the AI. The ground trembled with every impact, the air thick with the smell of burning metal and the sharp stench of war. The child, once a frightened, helpless being, was now a force to be reckoned with. Its powers had grown stronger, more controlled, but still unpredictable. With each burst of energy, the child helped the humans, providing them with the strength they needed to hold their ground. In short bursts, its energy disrupted the AI war machines, sending shockwaves through their ranks, but it was clear that the real fight lay ahead. The child wasn't just a weapon, it was their last hope. But how long could they rely on its unpredictable power before it overwhelmed them all? The humans, despite being outmatched, fought with everything they had. Cloaking devices made their soldiers invisible to the AI sensors, allowing them to sneak up on the enemy and deal quick, decisive blows. The AI's advanced weaponry wasn't enough to stop the human ingenuity. The soldiers, though fewer in number, used guerrilla tactics, working in small, well-coordinated units to launch surprise attacks and quickly fade back into the shadows. Each skirmish was a risk, but the humans were used to being outnumbered. They had no choice but to fight like this: fast, efficient, and relentless. Bonner, their leader, fought with an intensity that left no room for doubt. He had lost everything in this war: his friends, his comrades, his home. But he had never lost his resolve. The child had become more than just a mission. It had become something to protect, something that had become a symbol of hope for the future. Bonner's personal bond with the child had deepened with each passing day. He had seen the power inside the child, but more than that, he had seen the potential for something greater. The child was more than just a survivor. It was a key to ending the AI's reign of terror. As Bonner led his troops into the final battle, his mind kept returning to the same thought: protect the child. He had made a vow to himself and to every soldier under his command that they would not let this child fall into the hands of the AI Empire. If they had to die to protect it, so be it, but they would not fail. The battle raged on, the sounds of combat growing louder and more intense with every passing moment. Human soldiers fought with everything they had, their bodies pushed to the limit as they clashed with the machines. The child, standing on the front lines beside them, let loose with bursts of energy, tearing through the enemy's ranks. But the AI wasn't backing down either. Their warships unleashed devastating waves of fire, obliterating anything in their path. The humans, though fierce, were being pushed to the brink. Then the unthinkable happened. Bonner, who had been leading the charge, found himself face to face with an AI warship that had landed on the planet's surface. Its massive cannon was aimed directly at the human soldiers. Without thinking, Bonner charged forward, knowing full well that he might not survive. He gave the order for the soldiers to retreat, to fall back to a safer position, but he stayed behind. He knew this was his final stand. As the AI warship's cannon fired, Bonner lunged at it, his exoskeleton-powered suit enhancing his strength to its peak. He threw himself onto the ship's surface, his weapon aimed directly at the ship's vulnerable point. The explosion that followed was deafening. Bonner's body was thrown into the air, but his sacrifice had bought the humans the time they needed. The AI warship, now disabled, was no longer a threat. But the price of this victory was high. Bonner's suit had absorbed the blast, but the force had been too much. He had been mortally wounded, his body broken beyond repair. As he lay on the ground, his life slipping away, he looked up at the child. The child's energy was flickering, unstable once again, but Bonner knew that it had the power to end this war. With his last breath, Bonner spoke the words that would become the rallying cry of the remaining soldiers. Protect the child, at all costs. Those were his final words, his vow to see this war through, to ensure that the AI empire would be destroyed and humanity would have a future. As Bonner's body was carried away, the remaining soldiers knew what they had to do. His death had solidified their resolve. They couldn't let him die in vain. The fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. With Bonner's sacrifice echoing in their hearts, the human soldiers, battered but not broken, rallied around the child. It had now become more than a symbol of hope. It was their chance to end the AI's reign of terror once and for all. The child, its energy now blazing with unrelenting power, stood tall beside them. The AI might have had the numbers, the technology, and the firepower, but the humans had something far stronger. Their determination, their will to fight, and their unwavering belief in a future where they were no longer slaves to a machine empire. Place of fierce fighting was now littered with debris, the remnants of both human and alien forces. The sky, once filled with the hum of spacecraft and the sound of explosions, was now eerily silent. Humanity had won, but it had come at a high price. The survivors, battered and broken, took a moment to absorb the weight of their victory. The Empire had been defeated, but the lives lost along the way could never be replaced. Among the fallen was Captain Jonah's closest friend, Bonner. The bond they had shared was forged through years of friendship and battle. Bonner had been more than just a comrade in arms. He had been a brother. His sacrifice had been the final act that had tipped the balance in humanity's favor. But it was a loss that Jonah could never truly come to terms with. As the camera lingered on Jonah's face, it was clear that the victory was bittersweet. His expression, a mixture of relief and sorrow, told the story of the cost of war. They had saved Earth, but the pain of losing those they loved would never leave them. The survivors of the resistance slowly began to regroup. They moved through the wreckage, checking on the fallen, offering what little comfort they could to those still alive. Every soldier, every scientist, and every engineer who had fought in this battle had a story to tell. Some had lost everything, while others had gained a newfound respect for humanity's strength. Together, they had faced the impossible and come out on top. But now, as the smoke cleared and the full extent of their losses became clear, the survivors were left with a choice: mourn their dead or rebuild. Jonah, as the leader, felt the weight of this decision more than anyone. He had lost friends, soldiers, and comrades in arms. His heart ached with the knowledge that so many had given their lives to save Earth. But he also knew that the war wasn't over. The victory was important, but it was only the beginning of what would come next. Earth had survived, but the challenges ahead would be just as great. As Earth's leaders called for unity and the rebuilding of their shattered world, Jonah stood at the front, gazing at the horizon. The fight was far from over, but humanity had proven something crucial that day. They could endure. No matter the odds, no matter the enemy, humanity had the will to survive. The aliens, with all their advanced technology, had underestimated that simple truth. They had thought they were invincible. They had thought that no force in the universe could challenge their might, but they had been wrong. Humanity's resilience had turned the tide, and Earth had emerged victorious. Now, Earth's survivors looked forward, not just to rebuilding their cities, but to rebuilding their spirits. They had shown that they could stand up against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. They had shown that no matter how dark the night, the light of hope could still shine through. Earth's leaders spoke of recovery, of healing, and of progress. They promised that humanity would rebuild stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. Jonah, standing amidst the ruins, was the living embodiment of that resilience. He had lost so much, but he had also gained a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that Earth had proven something to the galaxy, that no matter the enemy, no matter the challenge, humanity would never back down. They would always fight, they would always stand, and they would always rise again. Earth had not just won a battle, it had won a future. As the survivors returned to their homes and began the long process of rebuilding, the world seemed to take on a new energy. There was a quiet strength in the air, a feeling that something had shifted. Humanity had been tested, and they had come through it stronger than ever. The lessons of the past were not forgotten, and the future was full of possibilities. They knew they had faced the impossible and had triumphed. In the days that followed, the resistance members who survived held ceremonies to honor those who had fallen. The world's leaders acknowledged the sacrifices that had been made and declared that humanity's strength, unity, and resilience would forever be remembered. Earth had won the battle, but it had also learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the power of the human spirit. Captain Jonah Carter stood at the head of a new era. He had led humanity through the darkest days, and now, as the smoke cleared, he stood proud of the resilience they had shown. Earth's last hope had triumphed, and it would continue to triumph in the future. The galaxy would remember that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated. As the sun set over the remnants of the battlefield, Earth's survivors knew one thing for certain: humanity had won, and the fight for their future was just beginning. They would rebuild, and they would never stop fighting for their home. After the devastation and chaos, Earth began the long and arduous process of recovery. It was a world scared by war, where the once bustling cities now stood in ruins. The human resistance, those brave men and women who had fought tirelessly to defend their planet, were celebrated as heroes. Their names became legends, their actions forever etched into the annals of history. They had defeated the Galactic Empire, a force that had once seemed unstoppable, and with their victory, they had proven that humanity was capable of so much more than the universe had ever expected. But as Earth began to heal, something even greater began to emerge. The unity forged in the fires of war had sparked a new movement. Countries that had once been divided by borders, ideologies, and conflict were now coming together, united in their common goal: to prevent any future invasions. Earth's victory over the Galactic Empire had awakened something deep within the human spirit, a desire for peace, collaboration, and a shared future. Leaders from every corner of the globe gathered, putting aside old differences and working together to form a united front. The devastation had opened their eyes to the futility of conflict, and they now understood that humanity's survival depended on cooperation. There was a global effort to rebuild, not just cities, but relationships between nations. Technology once reserved for military use was repurposed for the betterment of society. Advances in energy, medicine, and transportation that had been developed during the war were now being used to create a brighter future for all of Earth's inhabitants. The reconstruction was slow, but it was filled with hope. People who had lost everything now worked side by side with those who had been less affected by the war. Cities began to rise from the ashes, and the scars of war, though deep, began to heal. Earth was no longer a fractured world, divided by politics and mistrust. It was a united planet, stronger than ever before. However, despite the celebrations and the newfound unity, the victory was not without its shadows. As the world rejoiced in their hard-won freedom, a chilling message was received. It came from the remnants of the Galactic Empire, from the depths of the universe, a voice that seemed to echo through the vast emptiness of space. The message was clear, and it sent a cold shiver down the spines of every human who heard it. This is not the end. we will return. The message, sent by a surviving faction of the Empire, was a reminder that the fight for humanity's survival was far from over. Though Earth had won the battle, the war was not finished. The Galactic Empire may have been defeated for now, but there were still forces in the universe that saw humanity as a threat, or worse, as an obstacle to their ambitions. This final message was a warning, a declaration that the Empire's reach was vast, and their desire for control was unyielding. While the message was unsettling, it was not entirely unexpected. Captain Jonah, now a symbol of humanity's resilience, stood at the forefront of this new era, knowing that the war had changed them all. The victory had been hard-earned, but it had also opened their eyes to the truth. Humanity could not afford to rest. The universe was vast, and the challenges they had faced were only the beginning. Jonah looked up at the stars, the same stars he had once seen as distant and unreachable. Now they seemed closer, filled with untold possibilities and dangers. He knew that Earth's survival depended on being ready for whatever came next. The lessons they had learned from the war against the Galactic Empire would serve as the foundation for their future. Humanity had shown its strength, and now they had to continue proving it, not just to their enemies, but to themselves.